video, I'll be talking about what would happen if Bryce Hall beat Austin McBroom. Would Bryce go forth with his promise of fighting KSI, and would Austin McBroom be exposed immediately as the CEO of Social Gloves? The ending of this story is incredible and something you won't see coming, so you definitely want to watch the whole video to find out what happens. This is What If Bryce Hall Beat Austin McBroom. Also, only a small percentage of my viewers are actually subscribed, so if you like this video, consider subscribing, but only subscribe if you truly want to. It's free and you could always change your mind. Enjoy the video. Bryce saw all his fellow TikTokers fall to the hands of the YouTubers, with Vinny Hacker being the only one coming out as victorious. Bryce knew that there was so much riding on his back. He needed to beat Austin, and after that, he was going to expose Austin fully for the reason why this fight was even happening in the first place. He needed to win and prove everyone that doubted him wrong. Everyone from Logan Paul, KSI, etc. They were all going to be proven wrong in just a few moments. For Austin, on the other hand, he also knew there was a lot on the line. He trained really hard for this fight. It was going to be his gateway to bigger fights like KSI and Jake Paul. He needed to win badly. The walkouts went as they did in the original timeline. Bryce went out alone while Austin went out with his family and friends. They both got in the ring and Bryce stood tall and was confident about the upcoming match he was going to have in a few seconds. The bell went off and the fighters squared up. Then and there, a new timeline was created. With everything going into this event, majority of the TikTokers losing, what Bryce's potential future holds, it was all motivation for him to make sure that he could put up the best performance possible against Austin. And throughout the entire match, he was an absolutely flawless fighter. He was dodging all his punches, landing a few of his own as well, and he wasn't fighting dirty at all. And his nose didn't bleed this time, and every time Bryce took a hit, it seemed like it didn't faze him. Now, that's not to say that Austin didn't put up a great fight as well. With his strength and athletic background, he was able to conserve his energy throughout the match and truly let his hands fly and make sure that every punch was significant. In the original timeline, we know that in the third round, it was the round where Bryce lost the fight, but in this new timeline, it would be the round that would help him win the fight. Bryce for the last two rounds was simply downloading information in regards to how Austin fought. He was very intelligent in those first two rounds, and he was able to use what he learned to really capitalize in this next round. Bryce came out unpredictable and technical. He would always dodge a punch, land a solid shot into Austin's body. Austin would then let his guard down, and then Bryce would land a few punches into his head. But Austin was able to move out the way before it got too dangerous. Bryce also remembered that in Tyler's fight against Gib, whenever Gib landed a punch, Tyler would always shake his head and say that it didn't hurt. But sure enough, it landed. Bryce knew that he would never acknowledge a punch whenever he does get hit, and even though he got hit a few times, he tried to show little emotion and answer back with a counterpunch. Bryce looked extremely impressive throughout this entire fight. He had all the fundamentals of a good boxer. Strength, patience, speed, heart, he had it all, because near the end of this round, Bryce was able to get Austin into a corner and went to town against Austin. The ref got in between them and it looked like he was going to call off the fight, but it turned out he was simply giving a standing 8 count to Austin. Bryce got a little too overexcited, but he remained calm and just focused on the round. Austin was able to get through the 8 count, they both boxed a little bit more, and the round was over. Everyone was in shock with Bryce's performance, but he knew that he couldn't celebrate yet. The job wasn't finished, and anything could happen in these last two rounds. To give a brief summary of what happened in these last two rounds, Bryce clearly won the 4th round as he was the one throwing the most punches and Austin was simply playing defense, and in the last round, it seemed like a draw. But with that being said, the fight went the distance. Everyone had a gut feeling they knew who the winner was going to be, and it looked like everyone's prediction was right, as the judges scored the bout a unanimous decision in favor of Bryce Hall. Bryce did it. He screamed from the top of his lungs to the point where immediately he messed up his voice, but he didn't care. He knew it would come back and it was time for him to celebrate with all his friends and family. Austin, on the other hand, couldn't believe it. All this time, all this money, all for nothing. He wasn't able to deliver properly the night of the fight, and as a result, he was going to face the consequences of being exposed heavily on social media by Bryce. Austin and Bryce hugged it out, and they did their respective interviews, and Bryce said in his post-fight interview, "What did I tell you guys who doubted me? I am a boxer. I am a fighter. I've always claimed to be a fighter. What do you guys have to say now?" Everyone in the crowd booed, and Bryce simply smiled. Everyone went back to their hotel to either rest or party, and the Social Gloves night was finally done. In this fan fiction, I will first be talking about how this affects Austin, and then move on to Bryce. For Austin, he was being harassed on social media by fans being disappointed that he wasn't able to beat Bryce. They were all relying on him to shut him up, and now he's gonna go on a rampage like Jake Paul is doing right now. Austin didn't smile at all and barely talked to his family. He was just thinking about the fight and how many opportunities simply vanished right before his eyes. But what was worse was that he had to wait extremely patiently for Bryce to make his video exposing Austin for why this event was even happening in the first place. Austin went downstairs to grab a cup of coffee and chat to his kids for a little bit and hang out with his wife. He was still visibly upset, but he was hoping that hanging out with his family would bring some joy. Soon after, Austin got a text from his trainer asking him if he saw Bryce's new TikTok, and Austin knew that he was in a world full of mayhem. He went to TikTok to see what Bryce posted, and here's what he had to say. Bryce thanked everyone for tuning in to watch the fight, but immediately came out and said that Austin McBroom was the CEO of Social Gloves. He organized this whole event in hopes of making himself look good for a potential fight against Jake Paul, and wanted to use me as a stepping stone to get there, which is why I declined so many contracts from him. But it wasn't until I got a $5 million offer to fight. So not only did I sign the contract, but I also made it my life's mission to beat Austin and make him look like an idiot. Side note, I don't truly know why Austin made this event happen. He said that no one knows what he had at stake, and I take his word for it. This is just my guess in regards to why he made this fight happen and what was worth exposing. Anyways, back to the video. So not only did Bryce make Austin look like an idiot, but he also revealed that he nor any of his friends got paid yet. The contract explicitly said that they were meant to get their money 12 hours after the fight concluded, and it has been 18 hours since the fight. So not only did Austin organize this event, but he also didn't bring in enough pay-per-views to draw in enough cash to pay the fighters, performers, commentators, etc. And he continued to pressure Austin by telling him that he wants his $5 million as soon as possible, and he won't forget this. The TikTok was done, and Austin leaned back on his chair with his hand on his forehead. He was pissed off and stressed. He took his phone and threw it across the living room and cracked his TV screen. His whole family screamed and his kids started to cry. His wife asked him what was wrong, and Austin just stared to the floor and broke down in tears. After that, there was nothing much going on for Austin. Behind the scenes, he was getting sued left, right, and center. He was getting called a scammer every time he would walk down the streets of LA. He was in hour-long phone calls with different authorities who helped him organize this event to help him get the money that they earned from the pay-per-views. He did continue making vlogs for his channel because realistically, he needed all the money that he could get, and he tried his best to stay on social media and explain people what's going on with the whole situation. But sure enough, this guy kind of ruined his own image quickly, and he wasn't going to participate in any boxing match anytime soon. And that's the end of this story for Austin McBroom. But what's up with Bryce Hall? Well, for him, sure enough, this guy was over the moon and extremely grateful for everything that has happened with him over the last 48 hours. He got the clout, he got the fame, and even though he didn't get the money, he's been getting hit up by all these companies to do some work for them. So that was good enough for him. But one of the first things he did after exposing Austin was call out KSI. He is a man of his word, and he wanted to live up to it. He made multiple videos clowning JJ, telling him that the videos that you made on me were stupid and idiotic, and that if he wants to come out of retirement, that I should be your next opponent. JJ saw these messages and was annoyed out of his mind. He was busy like no tomorrow. He had YouTube and music to focus on. He doesn't have enough time in his calendar to make room for a boxing fight. But Bryce kept pressuring this guy, so JJ sure enough decided to give him what he wanted. In the old universe, after KSI releasing his album, he went on tour to perform his songs. But in this new world, while his album was in the process of being released, he was working on a boxing match with Bryce Hall. Under Sky Sports, it was going to be a professional fight with 10-ounce gloves, 10 rounds, and this boxing match was going to take place in Liverpool in October of 2021. This meant that there would not be a tour for JJ. Either way, this was more than enough time for JJ to get back in the routine of boxing and get ahead on Sidemen videos. Bryce decided to take this fight. People thought that considering that it was in the UK, it would not be ideal since everyone hates Bryce, but he was ready for the challenge. He thought it would be so fun to beat JJ in front of all his fans. So sure enough, training had begun. KSI didn't want to have to do this immediately after his album release. He had so much planned and it was all interrupted by some TikToker, but he knew that he could beat Bryce if he just trained hard enough. He learned in his last few fights to never underestimate your opponent, so he trained with his trainers as if he was fighting Mike Tyson. The same mentality was with Bryce. He trained like an animal to make sure that he could win this fight, and he was constantly watching JJ box in his previous matches to understand how he works in the ring. He knows that this would be a big challenge, and he needed to make sure that he was fully prepared for this fight. When Bryce made his presence in the UK through the press conference, it was awful for him. Not a single person liked this guy, and even though he thought he was going to handle it, the hate got to him more than he thought. But he pushed that aside quickly because he knew that in the end, JJ's fans aren't fighting for him. It's just him and JJ, and that's it. So it was the night of the fight, and fans were ready to see KSI back in the boxing ring after such a long time. KSI walked out to his song Domain, and Bryce Hall, for the meme, walked out to its Everyday Bro. The fans booed him, but Bryce just stood tall and focused on the task at hand. The ring was empty with only 2 fighters in the ring, and the match started. Now, if you recall, in the KSI vs Logan Paul fight, Logan said continuously that he was intimidated by JJ when he was in the ring. It truly looked like that he was ready to end Logan's life. In this timeline, that was fully present as well. Bryce could tell from round 1 that JJ was ready to end him and shut him up, and that was enough to fully intimidate him. For the entire first round, Bryce would never throw a proper punch because he was nervous that JJ would find a way to counter it, and every time he did throw a punch, that is exactly what JJ would do. KSI stayed cool, calm, and collected. Overconfidence never came over him. He always prepared for the worst and was ready to tackle it. JJ would throw a few barrage attacks and Bryce would try to clinch him, but JJ would get out of the clinch and strike his body with really hard shots. Bryce tried to clinch him again, but apparently he didn't learn his lesson, as JJ quickly and smoothly got out again and threw a hard punch to his liver. And just like that, Bryce kneeled before KSI. He had one knee in the air and one knee on the ground. Bryce was breathing heavily while the ref was counting the 10. KSI stared at him for the entire count, catching his breath. He did no celebrations or taunts, he just stared. After the ref ref reached 7, Bryce got on both knees and started coughing harshly. Then the ref reached 10 and the match was over. KSI beat Bryce Hall in the first round. JJ, however, wasn't happy. He wanted more of a fight. He made Bryce look like a child in the ring. He felt like he had way more to show to the fans, but I guess the bright side for him was that he got a quick victory. JJ and Bryce hugged it out. Bryce said congratulations to him, and KSI whispered in his ear, "I hope I shut your mouth." They got out of the hug. JJ stared deep into his eyes with a ticked off face and walked away, while Bryce was there in shock and frustrated that he didn't come out to fight. And that is the end of this story. If you enjoyed this video, remember to leave a like. Let's see if we could potentially hit 50 likes. And if you like this kind of content, don't forget to subscribe. Follow my social medias as well. You can find them below. And if you have an idea for a fan fiction, leave a comment and I'll check it out. And I'll see you guys next time.